Cheryl, she could turn the music off. I apologize for the delay. We're just going to try to eliminate the music. While we're working on the IT, I just want to go over one thing before we call the meeting to order. And it's just, for anybody here, the Prince Edward County Planning Commission strongly encourages citizens to participate in public meetings, which I appreciate everybody coming out. We all do appreciate everybody coming out tonight. Through in-person participation, written comments, which thank you again for that, and/or remote participation. That's what we're working on now, because you can call into the meeting. So we could possibly have some people calling in. And there's a number for that, 844-890-7777, access code 390313. Additionally, citizens may view the Planning Commission meeting live, which we do have it live in its entirety at the county's YouTube channel, the link to which is provided on the county's website. Sure, go ahead. Public hearing comments for the Planning Commission meetings are subject to the citizen guide, providing input during public participation in public hearings for Prince Edward County government meetings, which was revised in October 2022. We're good. Okay, okay. We're good? Okay. Okay, we're good. Thank you for your patience. With that, I'd like to call the meeting to order. The first thing we do count, or we take a roll, to make sure we have a quorum here with the board. Mr. Page?
Here.
Mr. Gilliam?
Here.
Mrs. Sandlin?
Here.
Mr. Peary?
Here.
Mr. Womack?
Here.
Mr. Weiss?
Here.
Mr. Fuller?
Present.
And Mr. Leatherwood?
Here.
Thank you very much. At this time, I'd like to ask everybody to stand for the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you. The first item on the agenda is for us to approve the minutes from the last meeting. Has everybody on the board had a chance to look at the minutes to see if there's any changes or corrections? Does anybody have any changes?
Mr. Chairman, in
Please.
keeping with my streak, I do
Yes,
have
please.
one typo.
No, we
to
appreciate it
fix.
more than you know.
Agenda packet, page 5, minutes, page 2, almost at the very top, second line, first word intent, should be intend. with
Intent. Okay. Anything else, Rep?
No, that's it.
Okay, terrific. Thank you so much for doing that. Okay. Okay. Again, we'll go around the room to make sure we can get a vote for the approving the minutes. Mr. Leatherwood?
Yes.
Mr. Fuller?
Approved.
Mr. Weiss?
Yes.
Mr. Womack? Mr. Womack?
Yes.
Mr. Peary?
Yes.
Mrs. Sandlin?
Yes.
Mr. Gilliam?
Yes.
Mr. Page?
Yes.
Okay. Minutes have been approved. On the agenda is the public hearing for tonight for Old Ridge Road Solar Project, and I kind of go over a little bit how this works. First of all, we'll have an overview of the solar project by Mr. Love here, and then we have the applicant will come up and make a presentation. They're given 15 minutes to make the presentation. They will be using a PowerPoint presentation tonight. Once that's done, then what we'll do is the board may have some questions for the applicant. We ask everybody just to relax there. We may have some questions for the applicant. Once that's over, then what we'll do is we'll open the public hearing. I do have approximately 12 names that have been signed up to speak for or against the project. The way it works is we have to set a time limit for that in fairness to everybody here, that you'll be given 3 minutes to come up to the podium. Everybody will come to the podium, state their name, where they live within the county, and then we ask you to speak for or against the project. After that 3 minutes then, we'll go through the list here, and then we'll check with anybody on the phone. And at that time, if there's a rebuttal that the applicant has, we can go over that. Once the entire public hearing is done with all the discussion here, we close the public hearing, then the board reviews our questions, if any. We'll go back to the applicant with some questions. Ask everybody, just understand that out of courtesy, if one person is speaking, we're going to ask everybody else to listen. We really don't want any arguments back and forth. If you're making your presentation, please make it to the board, not to the applicant. We will do the same thing here. We appreciate, and again, I want to thank everybody for here. Nothing is more important than having the citizens as part of this meeting. So we appreciate that. With that in mind, Mr. Love?
Yes, Mr. Chairman, members of the commission, the county received an application by Old Ridge Road Solar One LLC for special use permit to construct and operate a 3-megawatt solar energy facility on tax parcel 039-14-1, which is located on the east side of Old Ridge Road, approximately a half a mile from its intersection with Prince Edward Highway, which is US 460. This parcel is zoned A1 agricultural residential, and this use requires a special use permit. As this is a solar application, there, as part of this review, you should be evaluating the purpose of the review. 15.2-2232 of Virginia Code requires that the Planning Commission review all proposed developments that include public utility facility prior to the construction or authorization of such facility. So in your fact finding, one of the things you'd be looking at is this public hearing is to see if this application is in substantial accord with the comprehensive plan, whether the location, character, and extent of the facility is in substantial accord with the comprehensive plan prior to any approval of a special use permit. So that should be part of any consideration. This public hearing was duly published in the Farmville Herald in the December 6th and December 13th editions. List of joining property owners, you have them in your packet. These are the folks that actually touch the property, whether around it or across the road. Also, because this is within a half mile of the corporate limit of the town of Farmville, they got a letter. I got no comment from the town of Farmville. We've received considerable and numerous emails and letters from the public, some of which came in today before 2 p.m. So you have a large packet of printed material that was put at your place setting tonight. As far as existing conditions, this is a existing timbered property, has timber land on it. It is denoted as a development area in the future land use plan. And it also, in your packet, I put in some potential conditions. As any application, you can modify these. These are just staff suggestions. And I think the applicant has some comments on 2 of these conditions that they'll go over. Again, you do have, in your packet, you had the public comments received prior to us sending the packet out Thursday, and then at your place setting is the rest of the comments that have come in. There was 2 petitions that one is in your packet tonight and one you had in the packet that was sent out on Thursday. I'd be glad to answer any questions that you have of me at this time.
So I'm sorry, so everybody on the board understands what we're going to do. Once we close the public hearing before our discussion, I'm going to give everybody about 5 minutes to take a look at all the information we received today at the courthouse here. I think it's important that we do that before we discuss where we go from there. Okay? Any questions for Mr. Love? Okay. Jesse, would you like to come up and make a presentation?
Mr. Chairman.
I'm sorry.
I do have a couple. Robbie, if I heard you right a moment ago, you said it's zoned A1.
A2.
A2.
Yes,
A2.
it's A2. And for just general understanding, can you give us what would be the main by right? Not special use permit, but by right uses for this property?
Yes. In this region of the county, in an A2, agricultural uses are allowed, which includes farm employee housing, farm stands, forestry operations, stables. As far as recreational uses, manufactured homes, single-family homes, two-family homes, which are also known as duplexes, temporary healthcare structures, single-family dwellings detached, short-term tourist rentals, accessory apartments, and accessory apartments can only be as big as 40% of the square footage of the main home. Under civic uses, that can be administrative services, camps, cemeteries, recreational facilities, educationals, including college, university, primary and secondary schools, post offices, public assemblies, churches, safety services, medical office, and under commercial by right, agricultural services, antique shops, assembly halls, bed and breakfast, consumer repair, personal services, fine art studios, veterinary clinics and hospitals, and also an amateur radio tile. That's the list.
That's for A2.
Long list.
That's for A2.
Okay, A2. And my next question, maybe my last for now, is given that this project, proposed project, is just on 25-ish acres of the 104, is it possible that in the future, the landowner, the applicant, could come in with additional special use permits elsewhere on the property, the balance of the 104?
I would say no, because the site plan includes the area. I'll let the applicant, I'm not sure what their lease agreement is on the parcel. But we're identifying it as a parcel ID number as a portion of that
Right.
with the site plan. If anything is coming back, it would have to be an amendment or a new application. But it's on this particular portion where their development area is.
Right. Which is just part of the 104.
Just part of the 100.
I would just say, remember, you could put any condition that the
Right.
commission and board want to.
Yeah.
Saying no other.
Okay,
Correct.
Yeah.
thank you.
But I think their lease is probably, their potential lease agreement may have some more legal standing on that matter.
The reason I asked us the lease seemed,
Yeah.
as I read it, was this portion of the 104,
25,
not
yeah.
the whole 100.
That's correct,
Yes.
yeah. And since that has been surveyed separate as a separate lot, there's no way for us to quantify that and identify that anything other than the property ID number that we have. But the site plan kind of locks in where their development area would be for this project.
For this project.
Yes, that's correct.
Thank you.
So has that survey been recorded?
No, I said there is no survey. I mean, it's just,
Sorry, I misunderstood.
yeah, I'm sorry. Yeah, I don't have any other way of identifying that portion other than their site plan.
Right.
Because it's on that, their site plan is a part of this, as
Right.
but yeah, there could be other, technically, unless the lease says differently, there could be other uses on other portions.
But from the board standpoint, we would have to have another application
Yes.
for any other portion of this 100 acres,
Unless it's a by right.
unless it's a by right, yes. Okay. Jesse?
Okay. Is this on?
Yes.
Okay. Hi, thanks for your time tonight. I'm Jesse Robinson with New Leaf Energy, Senior Project Developer, and here with me is Andrew Kavanaugh, our civil engineer. And we're here on behalf of the Puckett family for a proposed 3-megawatt project off Old Ridge Road. Oh. I don't know.
There we go.
Okay.
Let me start this back. Let me see.
Okay. Is our, did our time
I started back.
Okay, thank you. So New Leaf Energy, we are, just some background on the company, formerly known as Borrego Solar. We were formed by 3 brothers in 1980 and have since developed over a gigawatt of solar projects across the nation, including in New York, California, Massachusetts, Illinois, and Virginia. These are just a couple projects we've built as examples. The one on the left shows a fixed tilt system. The one on the right is a single axis tracker system, which is what we'll be using for this project, proposed for this project. And the Virginia Clean Economy Act passed in 2020 and called for Dominion to acquire over 1,000 megawatts of solar by 2035. So this project, it is 3 megawatts, and we are planning to participate in the shared solar program, which would allow folks with Dominion Energy bills to subscribe to that project and receive savings. So this project, like Mr. Leff said, is located off of Old Ridge Road, south of 460. Okay, a couple of reasons why we chose this parcel. Number one, the landowner is interested in developing the property for this use. This property is sort of a residual parcel of the residential development that's happened in the area and is sort of not very suitable for other development uses. There's a transmission line that runs through the property. There's a floodplain that we'll denote on future slides, taking up a major portion of the site. And so this is a way for him to have supplemental use, supplemental income of the property while maintaining ownership of it. Also, there's the interconnection infrastructure we need located at this site. We interconnect to the distribution line that runs along the road that runs directly to a local substation. We don't need our own substation for this project, so it's really beneficial that infrastructure is already there. We don't have to rezone this parcel to apply for an SUP. We are allowed to as A2. And we're not impacting wetlands or streams with our design. We're more than 450 feet back from Old Ridge Road. And this project would essentially preserve the land to be used in the future as Mr. Puckett would like it, staying in his ownership. It could go back to being trees. He could choose to develop it later on. Those remain possibilities. I touched on that with this being in the shared solar program. That's our plan. Folks could subscribe and get savings. There also will be additional tax revenue to the county from this project. If you look at the fenced area of the project over 40 years, as it's currently taxed, it would bring in a little over $2,000 of taxes to the county. This project is estimated to bring in about $360,000 to the county. Also, this project, there really is not much traffic needed. Once the project's built, it needs periodic visits, but really much not at all, so it won't be a noticeable impact on traffic. And it also doesn't need anything from county services. We won't be pulling from public sewer or adding more people to schools. There's no impact on that with this project. And we will be upgrading the distribution line that we're interconnecting to. to interconnect to it with Dominion Energy, and that just makes that circuit more reliable for other folks that are along it. We did conduct community outreach for this project back in September. We had about 28 attendees. We notified folks by mail and then in the local newspaper, and also had a couple organizations post about the flyer on their pages or around their building. We heard from folks at the meeting, questions about visual screening, and offered to come out to their home and take pictures from their home facing the site, and we would put together a visual simulation specifically for them from their view. We followed up with the folks who mentioned that concern at the meeting, but did not receive a response. Also, after the meeting, we compiled all of our meeting minutes, questions from folks, and our answers, and sent that out to the attendees as well.
Thank you, Jesse. Good evening, Commissioners. My name is Andrew Kavanaugh. I am a civil engineer with New Leaf Energy, and this evening I'm here to give you a brief overview of the project layout for the Old Ridge Road Solar Facility. In front of you this evening, we have a 3-megawatt facility utilizing single-axis trackers. The benefit of the single-axis trackers is the racking tolerances of the tracking system allows us to conform the site to the land and not the other way around. So it involves minimal grading where it would only be necessary for the access road and stormwater. The footprint of the facility is roughly 25 acres or 24% of the residual parcel left over after the subdivision. 12 acres of that is screening and access, 12 acres outside of that is screening and access, and an additional vegetative areas are reserved outside of that as well. Again, as Rob mentioned, this parcel is zoned A2 and is a permissible use with an SUP in the county. Finally, there is no other solar project located within a 5-mile radius, and there is a 5.5 density allowance within the county. Moving on to the environmental constraints of the project, directly correlating to the land use section of the comprehensive plan. Through our initial site discovery, we were able to identify and avoid the 100-year FEMA floodplain, also the streams and wetlands that were delineated on site, as you'll see on the map to the left, while also avoiding the transmission line which bisects the wetlands in the yellow area to the right of the map. Topography and orientation along slopes was heavily considered in this project. Again, I refer back to the single-axis tracker, which allows us to conform to the land and utilize minimal grading. Visibility of the road and adjacent parcels was a large concern of ours, as we knew it would be a large concern of the communities. So we believe that where we've sited the facility is well nested within the topography and the existing mature vegetation on site. Following time of year constrictions, as stated by DWR, for tree clearing, we'll also be implementing pollinator species for our inner row spacing to create a pollination habitat for monarch butterflies. And in accordance with the Historical and Cultural Resources Objective 1, we'll be conducting a Phase 1B architectural and archaeological survey on site. Looking at the county requirements versus what's been designed this evening, we have the setbacks from the adjacent properties is 50 feet. We were able to meet the 50 feet setback requirements in the northern portion and the northwest portion and southern portion of the site. And additionally, we have been able to increase those up to 675 feet outside of those two areas. Setbacks from the main buildings residing on the parcels is stated to be at 75 feet requirement for the county. We were able to achieve 475 feet. The landscape buffer requirement being 15 feet, we were able to achieve a variable landscape buffer width, 50 feet, again, at those two, the southern and northwestern portion of the site, and all the way up to 200 feet with upwards of 725 feet where additional vegetation is to remain outside of the project area. Noise limit at the property line, 50 decibels, and we will be meeting that or exceeding the decibel level, meaning we'll be coming under 50 decibels. And finally, panel height, the county requirement is 20 feet. It appears the draft conditions are stating it at 18, and we will be utilizing a maximum height of 14 feet. So in summary, the project meets and or exceeds all ordinance requirements for solar development. Moving on, in accordance with Land Use Objective 1 denoted at the bottom, we took additional design considerations into fact while looking at this site. On the magenta areas, lots 6 through 12 on the west side, there is a 50-foot minimum clearance. Those are the landowner's parcels that he still owns, and those are undeveloped lots at this time. Now, if you look to the right of the presentation, you'll see the 200 and 400-foot clearance minimums. Those are the developed lots of lots 2 through 5. 200 feet clearance minimum from the property line and 400 feet setback from the residential homes themselves. Which brings us over to our conceptual landscape plan, which yields approximately 11.5 acres. And sitting outside of that to the north and to the southwest, you'll see additional vegetation to remain. What this gets for us is about 25.5 acres of vegetation and screening, which is is an equal balance of site development to the screening we'll be utilizing on site. To the eastern portion, the existing wetlands and vegetation, due to it being an environmental feature, we can't clear, we won't touch. And that's an additional 20.65 acres of screening to the rear. Site topography is also one of the more poignant features of this site. Rolling topography towards the front of the site, allows the site to fall backwards towards the wetland area. And you'll see in this map here, along the undeveloped lots along the frontage of the site, there's the 50-foot buffer and the 200-foot buffer, and additionally the increasing 200-plus foot buffer. And through our initial model, we were able to further conceptualize how well the facility was sited. Our renderings yielded a facility that is well screened and nested within the landscape, utilizing topography and existing vegetation to shield the facility from the local residents immediately. Now, Jesse made mention earlier that we reached out to local residents to try and set up visual simulations from their property lines. Unfortunately, we did not hear back, so what we did is the next best thing that we could. Site elevation sections across 2 critical points of the facility. Section A to A1, you'll see from the western portion to the eastern portion. And does this have a laser pointer? Yeah. West to eastern portion, you'll see the residential home on the top side, which actually falls below the crest in the topography. And the rolling topography away from the residential home also helps to create a wire mesh of canopy screening between the residents and the facility itself. And towards the backside, you'll see the site entirely drop off into the wetland marsh area. Site B to B1 is from a southwestern portion to a northeastern portion, most critically looking at the homes on both sides of Old Ridge Road as well as the residents to the rear of the site. Again, this shows the rolling topography and how well the site is nested within the topography on site. And again, reinforcing that wire mesh canopy structure that really shields this site. Kind of quickly looking at some existing site conditions, the site access road and proposed 20-foot gravel driveway access, pole farm on the right side. And even with clearing in the rear, the site is still below the topography of the site and cannot be viewed from the road. Coming in on Old Ridge Road, right before the bend, before you get into the residential portion of the area, we see the pre-existing conditions. And then after construction, there is minimal canopy removal to the top left. And again, not visible from Old Ridge. Finally, we had Saratoga create us some renderings of the facility as it would sit. However, I would like to note that the only way you're going to get these visual sims in your own perspective is flying aerially. And that is how the facility is nested within the topography and the existing vegetation. In a means to provide a quick synopsis of the life cycle of a project, we'll start with construction, which takes typically 6 to 8 months. The hours of construction are typically limited and/or conditioned by the county. Going over to operation and maintenance, as Jesse mentioned before, this is 20 years with the option to extend up to 40. This is operated and monitored remotely with biweekly to monthly on-site visits, which will create 2 to 4 long-term jobs. Noise from the equipment, as mentioned before, has to meet the county requirements at 50 decibels at the property line. And any noise would come from the inverter and transformer. Decommissioning, end of life, is a big topic, and people want to be ensured that this will come out when it's done. However, we will cost the bond with the county prior to construction. The bond will be reevaluated in 5-year increments to make sure the appropriate funds are allocated for the decommissioning of the project. Owner will remove all equipment and return the site to its pre-existing conditions, and the bulk of the materials that will be removed from the site can be recycled. The solar panels themselves can be upcycled, donated, reused as secondhand, recycled, and disposed of or at an approved facility. And finally, with decommission, it's about a 4 to 6 month process. Two of the proposed conditions we wanted to look at tonight, quick red lines for. Condition number 22 is more of a preemptive red line. We would be requesting a 3-year construction increase. Internal diligence and scheduling has put us at a very tight 2 years. We've got a lot of long lead times, a lot of long lead time items and studies that we need to come back to make sure we appropriately cover everything necessary for this site. One of them being 1 year for stormwater, real estate, geotechnical reports, so on and so forth. So this is more of a premature ask for that 1 year extension, just for a buffer. Condition number 28, for the 50% of disturbance, we were looking to have the second portion of that struck. Due to the size of the facility, and typically with silviculture activities, which would be tree clearing, would be the initial construction activity on this site, don't really require BMPs to be implemented. And we would be establishing our BMPs before clearing and grubbing activities, so we would have that lined up with the county as well. And I'll turn it over to Jesse to wrap it up very quickly.
Just one quick question.
Yes, sir.
Construction, should the project be approved, where are you going to come in for construction? On the acreage, where would you start construction? How would you access?
We would come in from 460 through Old Ridge Road, and then the existing logging trail for that site.
Okay. Jesse, if you can just wrap it up then?
Yeah. This is our last slide. We just wanted to propose this condition on the screen to the county. I know the county in the past has done siting agreements with developers for projects, and we're happy to do that 10,000 per megawatt payment. We're just not allowed for projects 5 megawatts or less. We can't sign a siting agreement. So in order to offer that same revenue to the county, we're proposing this condition. It just has to be dedicated to something, a use that could be tied back to the project. So I have what I'm proposing here is to put it towards conservation of forested sites, but it can be, we're flexible on what that goes to.
Okay, thank you very much.
Thanks.
Does the board have any questions for the applicant before we move forward?
Mr. Chairman?
Yes, sir.
No, I appreciate the overview. I know there's a lot of aesthetics and environmental questions. They answered some of them, and I'm sure there's going to be a few more from the audience. But one question I do have is how large will the laydown area be? And will that be encompassed within the site?
Yes, it would, and it's typically about a 1 acre laydown area, 200 by 200 or so.
Another question I have, what opportunities are there for relocation of the construction road? I know the main road that's been identified, been across the property, and that could be used as a maintenance road, but is there opportunities to go ahead and look at an additional construction road that would mitigate a lot of the traffic on Old Ridge and maybe appease a lot of people?
That's why I asked the question.
Sure,
relative
yeah,
to-
and it's a great question, one that we looked at in the beginning as well. Obviously, Old Ridge Road may not be the optimal road to use. However, with the environmental features surrounding the site, it would cause greater disturbance to the environment to actually try to permit a construction entrance elsewhere on the site than it would to feasibly use the existing entrance from Old Ridge Road. Through our wetland delineations, it is pretty much bisecting the entire backside of the site, which precludes us from being able to enter almost anywhere else.
Well, I have looked at the site. I think it could have been done closer to the intersection of 460, or potentially, and I've done this myself in the
Sure.
construction business, even coming in from Poorhouse Road and crossing the Bush Road.
That's something we would be willing to look into.
And I can give you some ideas in that
Sure.
too, that would be, I think, more feasible.
Sure. And we're also willing to condition our construction hours of trucks
And that's the
delivering
next question I have, what hours are you?
around school schedules as well for buses in the area.
Thank you.
Any other questions for the applicant from the board?
Mr. Chairman, I have a couple.
But Mr. Weiss?
For either of you who can answer. Beyond construction, the operational timeframe, Can you help us understand the 20 years versus the potential 40 years? For example, would the second 20-year period involve replacing panels or just basically starting construction all over again to do a second 20 years? Or would the life of the first set of equipment just continue? Or some combination of that?
Yes, so the lease agreement is for 20 years, and then we have options to extend up to 40 in 5-year increments. Normally, the goal is to go up to 40 years, and we use Tier 1 panels, which have a warranty for 25 years, but they degrade at, is it 0.0, 0.3? 0.3% each year. So at the end of the 40 years, it's about 88% efficiency. So we don't expect to have to replace panels or construct like a second time at the facility.
So what
that
you
address?
construct at the start
Yep.
would basically, subject to breakage or something having to be replaced, you would just keep going
That's right.
beyond the 20 years for another 20?
Yeah,
Up to another 20.
if we choose to, but yeah.
And if the lease is not renewed after that 20 years, that's when the decommissioning would begin at that point as well.
Okay.
Anything else, Fred?
That's good for now.
Okay. Are there any other questions? Okay. Thank you very much for the presentation. With that, I will open the public hearing. And this is where, again, we'll ask, I'll go by the list I have here. I'll just get down the list and I'll ask the name here, the speaker to come up to the podium, introduce yourself, say where you live within the county, and then we're going to ask you to try to keep it to 3 minutes. The only other thing I'll ask is, if we end up getting 4 people in a row saying the exact same thing, we may ask for somebody to just say, I would like to, confirm and validate what the previous speaker said. That way, we're not losing interest here in the meeting. That's all I'd ask, okay? But we truly want to hear from everybody. We'll start with Mr. Wall. Yes, sir.
Thank you very much for the opportunity to speak here. Good evening. I'm Steve Wall. I live on Old Ridge Road, family land that was purchased in the 50s and the 60s. And it seems to me that time is moving too fast, is that what we're failing to see here is that's Old Ridge Road. The presentation previously said the site is located on the backside of the hill that runs along Old Ridge Road. Well, Old Ridge Road is a ridge on top of a hill. It has been an important route in this county since pre-revolutionary times. That is how people on that end of the county got to the county seat, which was Worsham, which was to run down Old Ridge. Old Ridge Road, the ridge itself is about 7 miles long. In some places, it's no more than 100 yards wide. And if you ride along, you can see that it falls off on both sides. But what you have at the bottom on each side is a river, a low ground, and a very sensitive area, which based on the county's own comprehensive plan, when they described my land, which is almost identical to this land, it's just a mile up the road. The County of Prince Edward states its comprehensive plan is to objective reserve from adverse development the county's critical environmental areas to include floodplains, which this is mostly floodplain, as we were told, wetlands, and areas with 20% or greater slope. Generally maintain these areas as conservation and wetlife preservation areas. The diverse and unspoiled land in that area cover types including lakes, ponds, wetlands, and forests with open areas providing habitat for a diversity of wildlife, including wildfowl. The chapter of the Open Space Land Act in the state of Virginia, which was set up in 1966, says, the preservation of open space land serves as a public purpose by promoting the health and welfare of the citizens of the Commonwealth by curbing urban sprawl and encouraging more desirable developmental of fundamental natural resources. The last place you want to put a foreign mechanical solar farm is in the middle of a brand-new neighborhood of a dozen $300,000 houses who bought that land thinking that the county and the developers would protect their property and drop this thing in there, which it just doesn't fit. This area needs to be preserved. The beech trees feed every animal in the forest. The hill is covered with them. If you go look, anything that does happen out there, water runs downhill, folks, guess where it goes? In either the river on the right-hand side of the ridge or the left-hand side of the ridge. Not the place for a solar farm. Thank you very much. Their presentation was great because it allowed us to visualize the ridge. Have a lovely evening and Merry Christmas.
Mr. Wall, thank you very much, sir. I have, and I apologize if I mispronounce anybody's name. I'm trying to read everything. Chloe Hodges?
Hi, everyone. Good evening. My name's Chloe Hodges, and I'm here on behalf of Energy Right. Energy Right is a nonprofit helping localities and their citizens navigate the clean energy landscape across the state of Virginia. My predecessor, Jacob, he has engaged, I think, with multiple leaders in the county about solar, and we appreciate the diligence already accomplished by the commission. The mission of Energy Right is to educate localities about clean energy, and make sure that solar projects are good neighbors. We promote energy done the right way with an emphasis of an all of the above energy strategy, including solar. We primarily focus on the local level with a focus on property rights and conservative ideals. So that's kind of what we stand for. Some reasons that we should support projects like this one is it helps to balance the grid and generate more American-made energy in the state of Virginia. It also helps to preserve the land, and then the landowner can use that land however they choose once the project's decommissioned. It also generates 10 times more revenue for the county than if the land was unused, which was demonstrated in the presentation. And it has a minimal impact on neighbors, such as limited noise, limited traffic, that sort of thing. So in my perspective, it's a good use of the land. Also, with shared solar projects like this one, as alluded to in the presentation, it allows for cheaper electric rates for people who subscribe to projects like this, which is an added benefit to people in the locality. I would also like to emphasize the importance of property rights for projects like this. Property rights are the keystone of a capitalistic society, and projects like these promote economic opportunity while respecting the personal liberties and adjacent landowners. I just want to reiterate kind of what I went over. It's important to have American-made energy and provide more revenue to the county, which this project does. Also, more affordable electricity and the preservation of land is super important. If Energy Right can ever be a resource to you all, please let me know. We're happy to be a resource, and I thank you for your time.
Ms. Hodges, thank you very much. Sharon Prout? Okay, Robert Prout?
Not this time.
Okay. I'll go to the next one. Anita Harris? Yeah, I'm just reading from the list of names that said speakers, sign-up sheet. Okay. Just because your name's on here, you don't have to speak, but it. Sure, okay, that's great.
Thank you for allowing me to have this chance. My name's Anita Harris, and I've lived in Ridgeway 2 subdivision with my husband, Ralph, for 37 years. I strongly oppose the solar farm proposal by New Leaf Energy Company that was requested by the landowner, Daniel Puckett. Mr. Puckett does not live on his property and seems not to have the same appreciation for the beautiful community that we have developed. We enjoy the benefits surrounded by nature, wildlife, good neighbors, and peace of living in a safe community. That's why we built here, and that's why we're still there, and I bet my neighbors would say the same thing. We are good citizens, taxpayers, and landowners who have done our part to better our community and the town of Farmville. We should not be forced to accept a solar farm as our neighbor when we do not believe it is a positive addition to our community. One landowner wants to use his land for financial gain at the expense of over 28 residential family homes. There are no benefits for my community. We are the ones that will have to live with the consequences or the potential problems that might arise from the existence of this solar farm. It will not be perfect as the picture that has been painted to us tonight by the energy company. Nothing is ever perfect. Please deny this proposal and develop a more acceptable plan in Prince Edward County for the development of solar farms. They do not belong in a residential area. I have nothing, none of us have nothing against the new clean energy farms, but in the right location. There's plenty of open, unused land already cut and available. Protect your communities of families from living next to solar farms. Thank you for your time and careful consideration on this issue.
Ms. Harris, thank you very much. Next, I have Mr. Randy Edmondson.
Good evening. My name is Randy Edmondson. My wife Cricket and I have lived at 376 Tall Pine Lane in Prince Edward County for 40 years. Located 1.2 miles off Highway 460, our family owns approximately 100 acres, the driveway of which, Tall Pine Lane, joins Old Ridge Road perpendicularly. Our northern property line is shared by 2 residents of Ridgeway 2, as well as property owned by Daniel and Brandy Puckett. Our eastern property line adjoins the Puckett's property. My wife and I are opposed to the proposal of New Leaf Energy and Old Ridge Solar One LLC to build a 25-acre solar facility on Old Ridge Road on land owned by the Pucketts, adjoining the Ridgeway 2 subdivision. Our small community, located in an area classified as A2 residential agricultural, is a high-density residential area with over 30 homes in the first 1.2 miles from Highway 460. Although not opposed to solar energy in general, we feel the construction of this facility in an established residential community will have a negative effect on the quality of life in that community. It is my understanding that of the 5 solar farms approved for Prince Edward County, this is the only proposal to be located in the A2 residential agricultural zone. The clear cutting of approximately 36 acres, reshaping the land for construction, and establishing a solar facility literally adjoining the backyards of numerous Ridgeway 2 subdivision homeowners will, we believe, result in environmental problems such as loss of natural plant and animal habitat, long-term use and disposal of potentially hazardous building materials, potential loss of property values, and a general diminishing of the quality of life in our community. Approval of this project by the county also opens the door for future commercial projects along our residential road and the rest of the A2 residential agricultural zone. We urge you to deny this permit and limit future projects such as this to the A1 agricultural zone where they are more suitable. Thank you very much for the opportunity to speak.
Mr. Edmondson, thank you very much. I have Mr. Marshall Womack.
Good evening, and thank you for the opportunity to meet with you all. My name is Marshall Womack. My wife Martha and I have lived on Old Ridge Road for 40 years. As a matter of fact, we were the first house down in there. I have some questions for the energy company. Will there be any containment ponds built? Because the excessive runoff created by all these flat surfaces is going to annihilate the wetlands. We already have our road flooding all the time. Has anyone spoken with the Commission of Game and Inland Fisheries about any endangered species that might be in the floodplain or Bush River, and what impact the runoff might cause on them or the river? My research finds the recommended distance from any home's foundation for a solar farm is 800 meters, or roughly 1/2 mile. And is the county prepared to receive the used panels in their dump system? My final question is, why would you want to put property that requires clear cutting of 30-plus acres? Deforestation has caused bears to regularly come on our property. We had 3 on our deck this year. We used to enjoy all the birds, but with the bears, we can no longer have bird feeders or hummingbird feeders, and thus the birds are suffering. So the more we cut down the trees, the more suffering the animals have. So I ask you to consider all these points very carefully. Would you want this in your backyard, where you sit on your deck? I don't think so. Thank you very much for your time.
Mr. Womack, thank you, sir. Mr. Garner?
Members of the Prince Edward Planning Commission, my name is John Garner. I live at 188 Ridgeway Drive, Farmville, Virginia, and I would like to address some issues in reference to the proposed solar farm on Old Ridge Road. The Planning Commission agenda summary on page 8 reads, goal, promote and support an environmentally sound future land use pattern that minimizes conflicts between existing and proposed land uses. The proposed location of the solar farm, if built, will be in the middle of our community of 34-plus homes. This area is a high-density residential area with houses of above-average value. There are no advantages to clear-cutting at least 36 acres of mature mixed hardwoods and conifers to place 23-plus acres of solar panels and containment ponds above a wetland adjacent to the Bush River, except the money leasing this land will generate. Trees offer many benefits. They reduce air pollution, moderate rising temperatures, absorb carbon dioxide, release oxygen, and provide food and habitat for forest animals, filter groundwater, and more. They help stop climate change. Regardless of the information New Leaf Solar provided, there are liabilities associated with solar farms. There's a fire hazard from electrical components. That's page 39, paragraph, New Leaf option and lease agreement, and firetrace.com. That's a website source. A forest fire in the middle of our community would be catastrophic. Research shows the components, toxic panel materials, and coatings can leach toxics into the soil and will drain into a wetland and into the wells of the surrounding inhabitants. New Leaf option and lease agreement, page 37, item 14. halakalasolar.com is my source for that. The term imminent risk is used when information sites discuss solar panel contamination. Imminent risk means that there's a significant risk of something bad happening, but it has not happened yet. That's page 36 and 37, a New Leaf option and lease agreement. Section J. Efforts and concerns of pollution from numerous sources has relaxed over the last several years due to the correlation between prioritizing safety and the money it costs corporations to keep the public safe. 38,000 to 138,000 birds are killed diving into solar panels annually in the United States. That is not addressed in the New Leaf option and lease agreement. But my source is politifact.com. The world has to figure out how to produce renewable energy to replace fossil fuels. In our efforts to improve the quality of our life, we need to implement systems for the purpose of providing positive results that can exceed what they intend to correct. New Leaf will downplay all the negative aspects of their endeavor. Their studies and project information show them in a positive light, but this is an illusion. The bottom line in our community is our community saying, we do not want this solar farm to be built in our neighborhood. Placing this project in our community does not support an environmentally sound future land use pattern that minimizes conflicts between existing and proposed land uses. That is the Planning Commission agenda summary, page 8. Thank you very much for your time and consideration.
Mr. Garner, thank you for your comments. Mr. Ralph Harris?
Thank you for the opportunity to come and speak. My name is Ralph Harris. My wife Anita and I have lived in Ridgeway 2 subdivision for 37 years. We have no problem with solar. We understand that it will be a major source of power to our power grids in the coming years. We also understand that it's clean energy and does not harm the environment, except when you cut down 26 acres of hardwood trees overlooking wetlands and place a solar farm, except when you have to bulldoze land and destroy the natural runoff, the drainage, and the groundwater, except when you destroy the habitat of the wildlife, except when you put a solar farm in the backyards of 7 $350,000 to $400,000 homes, except when you put a small solar farm within 900 feet of 28 homes. This is the wrong location for the solar farm, and the county needs to restrict solar farms in residential areas. Rock River Homes has constructed 21 homes within 36 months. Some of these homes were sold before completions. Others were under contract within a week or a few months. The last one was up for sale when the community found out about the solar farm. This house remains unsold. Is this house unattractive? I've got a picture of it. It's a very nice looking house. Is this house poorly built? No, they built the rest of them out there, the other 20 houses. Is it because of the economy? No. I believe that it's not being sold like the other 20 were because the potential buyers have found out this small solar farm will be in their backyards. We were told by New Life Energy Company that our property values would not be affected according to a third-party hire. A third-party hire. One thing that concerns me is the lease for the solar farm dates back to November the 3rd, 2020. The residents in this area did not know about the solar farm until late August 2023, almost 3 years later. Would Rock River Homes have built these new homes if they knew the solar farm was coming? I don't think so, nor do many of the people that purchased these houses. Property value won't be affected. Who the heck is New Life kidding? I got time. I don't have time. They also say that these solar modules are not toxic, but that's still under review. Thank you for your time.
Mr. Harris, thank you very much. Dr. Amy Harris?
I was told I could present PowerPoint, so it is okay if they're able to hold up the current property that is going to be timbered? Okay. Dear Honorable Planning, I'm sorry, I just want to make sure, I don't know if you can see it before my time starts. This is the current wooded acres surrounding our neighborhood that will be cut down, so you can see it. Dear Honorable Planning Commissioners, thank you for your service to Prince Edward in this ever-important job deciding how land use affects all county residents. My name is Dr. Harris. I live at 244 Ridgeway Drive in Ridgeway 2, adjoining the property owner, Mr. Puckett. I'm a counselor and an IO psychologist, and I conduct telehealth at my home. Prior to Mr. Puckett acquiring his property, we had a very lovely and peaceful neighborhood where everyone felt safe, enjoyed nature walking through the woods, and enjoyed our properties. I have happy memories of camping around the pond and walking with my brother on the acreage. There was no need to worry about safety back then, but, sorry. Since Mr. Puckett has acquired the property, he's shown a total disregard for neighbors by hunting and establishing hunting stands that encircle our entire subdivision. I often wake up hearing gunshots. I go to sleep at night hearing gunshots. It's not even just about me. The neighbors complain about the gunshots. It's disruptive to my telehealth practice. My clients hear the gunshots. and it destroys the peaceful environment of my property. After having a.
Dr. Harris, I apologize, but unfortunately, the hunting portion is not pertinent to the topic here.
I'm basing it on behaviors that are
Okay.
present. As a psychologist, past behaviors predict and can have bearing on future.
Okay, but
Okay.
it's not pertinent to the project that we're talking about here, though.
Okay. And while we realize and respect Mr. Puckett has property rights, we would like to point out that we also have property rights too. And while we know this public hearing tonight is about a solar project, I would like to emphasize that Mr. Puckett's current activities have been extremely inconsiderate, disruptive, and negligent to our community he does not even live in. And now he wants to disrupt all of us again. While we have no issue with Mr. Puckett, and we do not have any issue, we do have the issue of disregard that has taken place as an absentee property owner. If the Pucketts actually lived in the neighborhood, we have no doubt that they would understand our concerns with hunting and with the disruptions that they cause to our neighborhood. New Leaf is not even based in Virginia, it's based in Massachusetts. And we have no doubt that this is going to be an out-of-sight, out-of-mind project. And while we have no issue with solar, we believe there are other locations in the county that would be better suited to install solar, not adjacent to a close-knit community where Mr. Puckett nor New Leaf will be impacted on a daily basis. We respectfully request that you deny this special use permit for solar and ask Mr. Puckett to put it on all the other land that he owns. If you choose to not deny this application, we respectfully request that you make it in condition of the special use permit to disallow the hunting on the entirety of our property owned by Mr. Puckett around the neighborhood, both parcels 3914-1 and 5211D per the attached map. Thank you for your time in this matter.
Dr. Harris, thank you. Just so you understand from the board standpoint, we can't deny anybody hunting on their property, that's even whether it's A2 or not. We can't deny that as a board. But I understand what you're saying. I appreciate your comments.
Yeah, as a
though.
psychologist, I'm talking about his current behaviors in disregard to neighbors that has an impact on us.
No, I understand. I
Okay.
appreciate that very much. I just wanted
Okay.
to let you know the guidelines we're required to go monitor. Thank you so much. Robin McLean?
Good evening. My name is Robin McLean. I live at 134 Ridgeway Drive. I echo the sentiments of the people before me as opposing the solar farm. I want to hit one area where in the presentation they said they didn't think traffic would be an issue. I'm very concerned about the traffic on Ridgeway, Old Ridge Road. We're happy to have our new neighbors and all the new homes that have been built recently, but there's a lot of new traffic. The road is not wide. I have talked with supervisors to see if we could get a line down the middle of the road because there are a lot of curves on the road and people come around the middle of the road. I feel like if there were a line down the middle of the road, it would help. I've been told by supervisors in the past, the road is not wide enough to put a line down the middle of the road. And so that makes me concerned about construction vehicles coming in and multiple months of traffic coming. So thank you so much for the opportunity to speak, and I hope you'll consider this aspect.
Thank you for your comment. Martha Womack?
Thank you for the opportunity to speak. My name is Martha Womack. I am married to Marshall Womack, who spoke earlier. We were the very first house in Ridgeway 2, and for a long, long time, you didn't even see a car go down that road. We bought 15 acres. We sold all but 6. 3 acres we have our house on that the project will be adjacent to. I am not against solar energy, but I am against solar panel farms in residential areas or adjacent to residential areas. I just have one comment to make. We don't know what we don't know. And I'm going to give you an analogy. Suntan lotion. When I was growing up, You were encouraged to go into the sun. It was healthy for you. It helped to create vitamin D. We had suntan lotion for those of us like myself who would burn. Well, now, every 6 months, I join millions of people being checked for skin cancer. We didn't know about sunscreens. We had no clue. We did what we thought was best. There are many projects that have happened in our country, and I will not name those, where things were put in certain areas and they didn't turn out so well. But every time I go for that screening, it's a scary thing. In fact, I bet there are other people in this room that have that screening as well. The thing is, we don't know what we don't know. Why put this in a residential area? I have a pond that backs up to this. I was told there would be sound like moderate rain or rustling leaves. I don't want to hear that 24/7. I don't want to be on my deck and hear that after the peacefulness I've had for all these years. I might think it's a bear coming through the woods if I hear the rustling leaves sound. As my husband mentioned, we had bears on our deck. And as a teacher, I've even had a conversation with a bear to convince him to leave my bird feeder alone. So again, I just would like for you to consider this. I am not against solar energy, but in this location, I am. I think it can be very harmful, and we have to think about this. Thank you very much for your time.
Thank you, Mrs. Womack. So everybody here wanted to live next to Mr. and Mrs. Womack. That's great. Charles and Lynn Taylor? I'd rather hear that young lady speak than you, sir.
Much better, too. Yeah. Thank you. My name is Chuck Taylor, and I live at the corner of Poorhouse Road and Highway 460, and have so for about 35 years. I found out about this project when I got this brochure in the mail, and I looked at it, and the first thing that struck me is what they showed on the slide tonight, too, is the parcel includes many acres of my property. That's not right. I went down to the courthouse and got this, and it says, yep, I'm right. That's not their property. So that was a mistake. So I went to the brochure, and the only way to contact these people was with the email to Ms. Robinson, who I'm glad to see is healthy, because when I emailed her, I got a note back that said that that was no longer a valid email address. And so nobody ever answered my concerns about my property being included in the parcel. So my point is, in my experience and in my career, people that don't pay attention to details don't end up with good results or the results they want.
Mr. Taylor, what you're saying, though, is your property is actually included in this
When you look-
100-acre parcel?
Yeah, when you look at this picture on the parcel, shows it going up the Poorhouse Road and across the Bush River. It doesn't. Okay? And that's all I have to say.
Thank you, sir. Mr. Charles Puckett.
Thank you all, members of the Planning Commission. My name's Charles Puckett. I live at Kingsville, and I have since 1973, some 50 years. I really don't have a dog in this fight, other than my son owns this property. The property was put up for auction. A realtor bought it. He put it for sale, and Daniel bought it from the realtor. He bought it with 50 acres being cut. He chose to have those 50 acres cut near 460 and not near the residential section. So he does have concern for the neighbors there, and I certainly have concern and am friends with most of these neighbors there. So this is not something that's personal, and my only comments are to be made outside the emotional realm and addressing Prince Edward County and their future development. It was said earlier here tonight by one of the county people that this is in an area that is planned for future development. When you look at future development in regards to the county, what infrastructure may be required of the county? What water and sewer may be required of the county? What additional school capacity may be required of the county? With this solar project, none of that is required. There's no water needed, there's no sewer needed, there's no additional schools needed, and, you know, there's no additional traffic after the initial construction, and like that. It just sits there and generates much-needed power on property that is not at its highest and best use now, and would probably be the best neighbor that any of these people could have when you look at the alternative uses that may come up. Sits there and generates power and generates tax revenue for the county. 369,000 is what was projected from the slide. I have no way of knowing whether that's correct or not, but I know it's going to be a lot more than basic timberland that's just sitting there at what I think they said, $2,600. So as you look at it, I think we certainly need to take into account the people's feelings that live close to it. I think it's very important. But I think you need to take into account also the future of the county and what this will bring to the county. That's all. I think every story has two sides. And I think we just need to take time to look at both sides of the story. But I appreciate you all. I was going to say in a bit of levity, I always wondered how Daniel felt in the lion's den. I guess I can mark it off my checkbox tonight. Thank you all very much.
Mr. Puckett, thank you, sir. With that, that exhausts the list of people that signed up. Is there anybody else here in the courtroom that wished to speak that did not sign up? You're welcome to come on up. And I'll still give you 3 minutes. I won't even cut it down to 2. Yeah, no, you're allowed 3.
Hi there, and thank you for your time. I'm Gail Stanley at 3545 Old Ridge Road, and we're new to Farmville. We've moved here from Northern Virginia after retiring. We built our dream retirement home here. And so we are very touched by this. And we feel the same thing that's already been said, so I'm not going to repeat that, but we're devastated that the solar proposal may go, but we hope that you will take in consideration the feelings of all the neighborhood. I mean, I understand Mr. Puckett's concern. Sorry, but I think that people and their livelihoods are more important than a piece of land. Okay, that's it. Thank you. Appreciate your time.
Thank you for being a new resident of the county. Anybody else in the audience wish to speak? Okay. Yes, sir.
I'll keep it short. Dr. Stephen Hayner, 3455 Old Ridge Road, directly across the street from the proposed location. So it's just like a simple mathematical thing that like what's proposed is this 369,000 plus the 30,000, whatever. But if the property values decrease, the tax rate's assessed on the property value, is it not? Yes. And you have like 30, 40 houses back there, multiply by however many years, this is a huge loss. That's it.
Thank you for your comment. Yes, sir. Seems to be another relatively new resident of the county.
Always good to see you, Commissioner Pregman. Jim Robichaud at 3343 Old Ridge Road. Just a couple questions. They're saying it's 25 acres that this solar farm is going to be on, but they had a report done by the Department of Conservation and Recreation, and it states it's a 69-acre solar farm. That's on page 202 out of your packet. And then the other question I have is the 15% discount on our insurance. They say aiming for a 15%. Is that guaranteed, or they're just hoping it's going to be 15%? And my last thing I'd like to say is, I'm from a small town in Massachusetts, Winchendon, Mass. And about 10 years ago, we rolled out the red carpet for these solar farms. The town considered it free money. You know, we had limited to no industrial commercial tax base. The town would agree on they'd come up with a contract, a pilot contract, they call it payment layer of taxes, roughly $11,000-ish per megawatt, plus a 2.5% escalator yearly built in. And they rolled it out, and boy, are we going to have free money here. What the tax base is going to be up to now. Well, next thing you know, the town's like a chia pet. These solar farms are everywhere. Now, this spring, they're going to have the town meeting, there'll be a town meeting form of government, they're going to put a moratorium on them because they're just, enough is enough. And Commissioner Pregman will find this at heart. They've even closed our golf course and stuffed them full of solar panels. So just take that into consideration. Thank you for your time, and y'all have a nice Christmas.
Mr. Robichaud, thank you very much, sir. I'd like to ask our solar team just to maybe comment on a couple little things here. The 25 to 69 acres, which was brought up, that's a question I have, right there. If Mr. Robichaud's talking about 69 acres and there's only 25, is there something you can enlighten me there?
Can you rephrase the question?
Mr. Robichaud was mentioning 25 acres, correct? And then, but actually, as you said, 69 acres? Yes. Yeah. So does the
So the fenced area for our project proposed is 25 acres.
Right.
Often what we do for studies is use a larger area just to capture
Okay.
a larger portion of the site.
So that's why the 69 is listed?
Right.
Okay.
But if we wanted to go beyond the 25 acres, we'd have to come back here with a revised SUP.
I'll use the term disturb loosely, but so the disturbance is going to be on 25 acres for the solar farm that you're proposing, correct?
That's correct.
Okay. Okay, that helps. The other question I did have is on containment pond that was brought up. And I like to answer or try to at least resolve some of the questions that were brought up. Especially in this case, relative to runoff.
Absolutely. Did you want to run off a few of the questions to start, or do you want to start high level?
I'll just go one by one if that's okay.
Okay.
I'm not that bad. I have a couple here, but go ahead.
No worries. So at the high level, this land use approval is just one part of a much more comprehensive approval process, both state, federal, and local level. In regards to runoff, the project wouldn't be approved if we were to exceed the pre-development levels of runoff proposed by the project. The anticipated goal with every project is to meet or come in below or reduce the amount of runoff from the project. These retention ponds are designed to hold water and disperse or perk within 24 to 72 hours, pending the volume of the storm allocated for it. So legally, we cannot propose any more runoff than the site is currently producing.
Okay. So as far as a pond per se, as we're talking about a containment pond, are you building a retention pond, or is there already retention ponds on the property that's going to?
No, we would be building those to treat the runoff.
Okay.
Both in terms of rate and quality.
Okay, okay, and they're within the 25 acres.
That's correct, yes.
Mr. Womack, does that kind of help understand?
I don't think they're within the 25 acres, that's all solar panels. The containment ponds would be outside the 25 acres.
They're outside the 25 acres?
No, I
No.
believe as submitted with the plans, those are within the fenced-in area.
I was going to say that would need to be because of the way the special use permit is for the 25 acres. Okay.
Interesting that soil and water conservation people didn't know a thing about this. They came to see me this
I can answer that.
Go ahead.
I can answer that question, sir. Soil and water conservation will not have a part in this matter at all.
Yeah.
Mr. Chairman, I have a question.
Yes, sir.
On the containment pond, you just said if it land perked, or is this containment pond gonna have a liner in it, or is it just?
No liners, no.
No liners?
Well, at this stage, this is the land use permit stage. All of that will be handled by DEQ, who is the VSMP authority, who we would be submitting our site plans to at that process, and they would be the final one to approve the design for the ponds as the best use feature, best management practice, if you will.
Yeah, DEQ will come in afterwards and review it.
I can answer two questions.
Sure, go ahead.
To address stormwater, there are two ways that stormwater can be done here for solar. For small solar, they could apply to the county because the county is a VSMP, a Virginia Stormwater Management Site. They typically, solar sites are doing permit by rule directly with DEQ. So their designs are reviewed by DEQ, their permitting is issued by DEQ. If they choose to file with us, they would submit to us. We have a third-party engineer that would review these plans, and then that paperwork goes to DEQ. DEQ still issues all VAR 10 stormwater permits, but the plan review would only happen here locally if they apply directly to us. Typically, I think you mentioned in your community meeting that you were going to do permit by rule. Is that correct, Jesse?
I don't know that permit by rule is the correct term for us, but we
Okay.
would likely go through DEQ.
Okay.
Yeah.
And just an additional note to that, as of June of last year, DEQ re-reviewed the rules and regulations for stormwater as associated with solar facilities. There's been a lot of heartburn from projects that weren't properly reviewed, didn't have proper stormwater management in the past. So this project would be adhering to all rules and regulations that have been denoted by DEQ as of last year. Initial calculations review that we are holding about 4,000 cubic feet of water or runoff per acre, and that's what we are accounting for stormwater management volume retention.
Thank you. I do have one other question. It's not really suited to you, but
Sure.
Mr. and Mrs. Taylor, the concern or the question about the property lines is very concerning. Unfortunately, that's something I can't address. The only people that can address that is you, the county here, and Mr. Puckett, but I think it's something that needs to be looked into, and I'm sure you would. Okay, yeah, no, I think it's important because I would hate for you to move forward, if you move forward, find out that you're putting solar panels on Mr. Taylor's property.
Sure. And obviously, I can take a look at that as well. I'm not familiar with what the property lines that went out in the packet are. However, to date, we have had a partial boundary survey done of the property from the western portion of the transmission line easement all the way up to Old Ridge Road. So we have everything in exact proportions that we need to design the site in accordance with the regulations.
There may be a conflict within the two property lines here.
Sure.
I think that needs to be addressed. I really do, before anything would happen.
And we would be happy to touch base
okay.
with you to provide the
I
information
think
we
it's
have.
important, Mr. Taylor. Yeah. Okay.
Mr. Chairman.
Yes.
One clarification, one comment. The proposed 25 acres is outside the 100-year flood parameter, because I know that problem. All of us been here for a long time know that thing floods from wall to wall. We've all seen it.
Yes.
But that is outside what you consider the 100-year.
That is correct. The FEMA 100-year floodplain was given to us through our wetland delineations by Labella and Associates, who is our environmental consultant. So the entire project sits outside of that. It is an absolute nightmare to permit in a FEMA.
One other quick question. What is your vegetation control for inside your perimeter, underneath your house? What means do you use?
A native seed mix for grasses, but again, we're willing to work with the county for a vegetative management plan. And again, through site plan review, we would be submitting, a landscape plan and a plant schedule for approval by the county.
So herbicides?
No herbicides.
No herbicides?
No herbicides. No pesticides, no herbicides.
So
Yes.
what about goats? They've been used before. I'm familiar with it. That's why I was asked.
Right. No, we're not planning to on this site.
Okay. Does the board have any other questions? Go ahead, sir.
Chair, two things. Elevation difference between the upper part of this to the retention ponds. How much is it? 20 feet, 30 feet? You know?
Do you mind clarifying the upper part of what to the, are we talking the floor of the
Elevation
basement to the?
Elevation change.
I don't want to lock into any numbers right now based off of what we've reserved, but nowhere near 20 feet, nowhere near 10 feet. I think what we've spec'd previously is 3 to 4 feet with maybe another foot of berming above that.
So this project won't have over 3-foot variation from retention ponds to the uppermost part? All I've heard about is slope
Yes.
and runoff.
Grade and slope and runoff.
I think you misunderstood your question.
Like, if you took a topo map and you have a lower number at your retention pond and at your highest point of where your fence would be, what is your elevation? Do you know? Change in elevation.
Overall change in elevation of the site varies. I'll be honest, I don't have that number off the top of my head. But the way we've addressed our plan set is we've allocated one retention basin per drainage area to account for drainage to that basin itself. So all the water is directed towards its appropriate basin.
Second question.
Yes, sir.
Maintenance on the site.
Yes.
Who's gonna mow the grass, cut the bushes down? Who does that?
Normally, we will, like, it's a bidding process, but normally it's someone more local who will do that. It's like a part-time job, and we just tend to want someone nearby the site.
Do you contract that out then?
Right, yeah.
Okay.
Thank you.
Again, any other questions from the board? Go ahead, Mr. Weiss.
I'd like to try to reconcile two themes that have been going around this evening. One is this particular site versus any other site. The special use permit application that's in our packet uses an interesting word to describe this location. It says it's ideal. I'm quoting the application, ideal. So did you all look at other sites in the county and determine this was the best of any other site in the county? Or is this, am I just putting too much weight on that word? It's not really, you didn't down select to this site. It's just, this site was available and you focused on it.
I think it's a combination of those two. We did look at more sites in Prince Edward County, and this is the only one we have under lease.
I understand that.
Yeah.
I understand this is the one you have under lease, but how did you get to this one?
Right.
By eliminating 100 others along the way?
Yeah, it's a combination of factors. I'm sure there's other parcels in the county that meet some of the requirements for solar, but not all. And one of those, most importantly, is an interested landowner that wants to use the property for that use. Also, the circuit, we're interconnecting to the Farmville substation, and that circuit does not run much at all into Prince Edward County. It kind of is this area only, and there's really no other parcels that could work along that circuit.
Okay, so part of the ideal nature of this is the proximity to that substation of this particular electric circuit.
That's right.
And a willing property owner.
Yep.
Okay. Any other factors that make this ideal?
Yep, the existing vegetation that we're able to use for screening the facility. So the trees are just taller from day one versus if we're planting vegetation and it needs to reach mature height. We're able to avoid wetlands and floodplains with this design entirely. And we don't have to rezone the parcel or other reasons we chose the site.
And then the second theme I want to reconcile is the economic impact or the just general benefits of this. The economic study by Mangum forecasted out 40 years versus 20 with the possibility of going longer. So can you help us understand why they went straight to 40 years? And if you know why they didn't address what one of the last speakers mentioned, the cost of the project, if there are property value declines as a result of this, there's no sort of the flip side of the project. If you could address, have you looked at that? Like one of the speakers mentioned, the potential decline in value. All of this is a forecast. There's no guarantee, all this would happen in 20 years or 40 years, but the one side of the coin has been presented. I'm just wondering if you looked at the other side of the coin too.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, well, for Mangum Economics, I don't know exactly why they would, I imagine what the reason they use 40 years is because the project could go up to 40, but they show the numbers for all 40, as I understand it. So you could calculate if it were to end earlier. But up to 40, that's the max that it could be contributing to the county. I think that's probably why they went there. And the goal would be to have it longer term, but we're not required to. So that's sort of just the distinction we make. And then for property value, the third party we use looks at existing projects that have been built in Virginia. For example, they looked at a project built in Isle of Wight County and looked at the sales price of the homes before the project was built and after, and found no difference. So it's not hypothetical, it's based on existing projects that have been built. And then in terms of, I think if I understood someone's comment, like tax revenue could go down because the assessment value could go down. Solar is assessed separately by the county, so it's a certain amount per acre. That's what it would be for the entirety of the project, unless the county chooses to raise it. In addition, personal property tax, which is not related to assessment at all. So that tax wouldn't change. Is that helpful?
Thank you. Cheryl, I don't want to be remiss. Do we have anybody on the phone? Okay, thank you. With that, I'd like to close the public hearing. I'm sorry.
Did you? Yeah. Sorry. Good evening, Mr. Chairman, members of the Planning Commission. My name is Karen Cohen. I'm a land use partner with Gentry Lock Attorneys and represent New Leaf Energy. So I'm speaking on their behalf. I don't want to get overly technical on anything legal, and the discussion has been so thorough on many things, but I think there are a couple of important legal themes that are emerging just to touch upon briefly. So, the citizens, sometimes when they're worried about a project and they come out and voice their opposition, and a project gets approved anyway, and I don't know that this one will, but sometimes people feel that their voices haven't been heard. And I think, therefore, it's important that the public understand some things that are unique about the law around solar projects. And just a couple things about development generally. I mean, this is not solar specific, but people talked about moving into an established residential community. And so they don't want something that they don't feel fits in with their community. But remember that people bought with knowledge that the Puckett's 104 acres that belonged to the Puckett's was zoned A2, and as one of the commissioners asked at the beginning of the meeting, remember that nothing prevents the Puckett's from by right using that land for a variety of agricultural uses, some of which might not be too pleasant, right? Forestry, manufactured housing, a college, a university, public assembly, church, assembly halls, things that people likely would also oppose but wouldn't have the opportunity to, because those things can be done by right. So I think it's just important to make note of that is part of the property rights picture on this. And then, the other thing is that in land use cases, government decision makers can't be motivated principally by heavy opposition from neighbors if they're expressing concerns. They have to be well-grounded zoning concerns, right? So like there was a case in the Fourth Circuit where a city council's denial of a fortune-telling place, even though it otherwise would have been allowed, then the court said denial that solely to placate the neighbor's opposition to it was not allowed. There have to be zoning grounds. So with solar, what is somewhat unique is that with respect to zoning of solar, a locality absolutely can put regulations, impose conditions. In this, 42 conditions are being imposed in addition to better than compliance with the setbacks, right? Places, they were, more 475 feet instead of 75 feet for setbacks, 50 to 675 when 50 is required, 50 to 200 feet, some places up to 725 feet of landscape buffer when 15 is required. So they've exceeded the ordinance requirements. But more importantly than that, and I just wanted to say just this one thing, that
In Virginia, the legislature has declared that it's the public policy of the Commonwealth of Virginia in a statute to encourage distributed generation solar projects so that, you know, again, and they've said that the power of localities to regulate them, you can regulate noise, you can regulate setbacks and all those kinds of things. But I just think it's important too that the public understands that that's the public policy of the Commonwealth. So as a zoning ground, the projects are to be encouraged, and particularly where they're so fully compliant and beyond compliant. And I'll just say too, my parents live next to a very big solar farm in Spotsylvania, and the real estate there is going gangbusters, so. All right, thank you very much.
I just
Appreciate
want to reconfirm what this group does here, the Planning Commission. Our job is to vet projects like this. Applicants come in, you know, with things, and then what we do is we either approve a project, add conditions, don't add conditions to it, we deny a project here, or we table a project. And anyway we go, that gets moved up to the County Board of Supervisors. Our job right now is to look at what's best for the county and the citizens of the county and what makes the most sense. And again, I want to thank everybody for coming out here to speak for or against the project. That's what's the most important thing. The last thing this group likes to see is when we have nobody here. Though, you know, sometimes I want to let you know, we don't take offense to anything that's said in this room here. We appreciate every comment that's made. There are some concerns naturally about property lines and some other things here, but we appreciate that. I also appreciate not having to use this tonight to stop anybody from speaking. So we will close the public hearing right now, and then I'm going to ask the board just to take a couple minutes because we did get some very valuable information from residents today, and I ask you just to take a look at that. Everybody's welcome to stay here. What we'll do is, after we take a couple minutes to do this, anybody can use restrooms or whatever, then we will discuss amongst the board, and we will come up with either an approval, a denial, or we'll table, and then we'll move that up to the County Board of Supervisors. And I think it's important that maybe, and I don't want to push this that much, but it'd be wise to talk to Mr. Taylor, even just to look at that. I mean, you can see his property lines. I don't want something to happen here where the 104 acres is actually 88 or 94 or whatever, or it cuts off a portion. The last thing we want is a battle over property lines.
Absolutely.
Okay.
Take a look at that.
Yeah, okay, yeah, okay. Okay, take a recess from there, and we'll take 5 minutes or so to at least look at this, 5 to 10 minutes, and then we'll reconvene. Thank you. Okay?
Absolutely. Well, no, you couldn't actually. I think it's been fully vetted. It's just not. It's really thoughtful.
Hey, man, doing good. Always send Lou one, Lou brings
That's what these people. Yeah, I did too, yeah. I went over there and looked at it.
I just didn't know if we, I don't want to press this too hard, anything conditioned about a construction road.
I think.
I'm assuming since this parcel is talking about everything in the blue lines here, right? Okay, well, this part, this is my property. I've lived there 30-some years. This part right here is mine.
In here,
Yep.
within the transmission.
My property goes over to the Bush River, okay? And so it's gonna be right next to the transmission thing, okay? So, I don't know if it makes a difference or not, but I don't know where they got this from, but again, it looks like sloppy work.
This is actually from county GIS.
Well, and I called that guy who runs the, I don't know what his name is, and he said, he has nothing to do with this, go down to the courthouse and check it out. I went down to the courthouse and checked it out.
So where's the transmission right away?
It's right here.
Okay, and you're over here mostly?
Well, this is Poorhouse Road, which is this, that. And then this is the Bush River, which is, it says Bush River, but I don't actually see a river. It goes right next to the transmission line, okay?
So you're kind of like.
This chunk right here is, at least right here, is me, okay?
We'll look into that. We are not going over that.
Oh, I looked at all the pictures, and I don't know if it has anything to do with how much of it you're allowed to do whatever with or whatnot, but it just, I mean, I don't know who got these pictures together, but it's wrong, and it just, you know, I don't know how you make that kind of mistake.
There should be a line, a proper line here, effectively.
Right. I'm saying that this is mine.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah.
None of this is mine.
Right. That would be a real big problem. The county's GIS, you guys pull these first. This is the third party that pulls from. But that's probably where the came from.
See, I don't know how far up here this goes. I don't know how far my property, because can't quite figure out where that is. I have to tell you, the guy, somebody said, I don't think it was you, I think it was them, that said build a road from Poorhouse Road over to the property. That would be the biggest ecological disaster that ever happened. Okay? That's a no-brainer. That's a no-way or no-brainer. I mean, it's underwater. My property is waterlogged over here. There's nothing there. The only thing there is a bunch of pileated woodpeckers, and there aren't very many of them around. Oh, right. Yeah, I mean, I just think that was craziness, okay? Go right ahead. Yeah. I think solar power is the only way to go, and this isn't going to affect me at all because I can see it in my house. My main concern for these people bought the houses not going to be there, is the noise. It really wasn't addressed the whole time. It's not, the lady said rustling leaves or permanent rain or something. I got to tell you, the highway noise out there has gotten, I've lived there 35 years, in the last 20, it's just going up. And so I don't know if you can actually say that that's what it's going to sound like or not, until you actually build it and say, oh, well, I'll be damned. This sounds like a hurricane. Who knew?
The county does.
Are they going to shut it down if it's over 50 decibels?
Yeah, I know they could.
Yeah, we would be in violation of the.
Yeah, they could, but they want that $360,000.
Neighbors will keep us in check. Anyways.
Well, I can tell you, I have my property, I'm in Mullen nowhere, but they have transformers and stuff, and you can sure hear them. Okay.
But, just if you wanted to push houses in the future, just double check the spelling on the road. That's correct. The way it's written.
You're exactly right. Let me see. I've got them. I actually have them on my phone.
I'm trying to drive this year, but I want to put the fence on.
That says C. Taylor.
That's me.
I don't know of any of that.
That says to C. Taylor.
Right. It was telling me that your message didn't go through.
Oh, do you have the original?
Good to see you. It's on that thing. Glasses, that's on too.
How are you, sir?
Yes.
Oh. No, that's not right.
Oh.
Okay. Okay. I'll take credit for that.
Two sides of corn, two sides on every coin.
I know the name is different.
Yep.
I know the name is different.
Okay, we can definitely take a look at this. Yeah.
It's not a very big.
I have the document, so I can bring it in my computer tonight, kind of cross-reference it with what we have, see if there's any missing links between the two, because we do have a partial boundary at this point.
Because of the rain. I've talked to some of the landowners.
But I have to tell you that, Daniel, he cut down all the timber around it 2 years ago, I guess, when they were building houses. And there's a lot more water down there than there was before. And somebody was talking about bears. I used to have 4 beehives, honey boxes, and I had bears come through and they trashed it. I put it back up again. Bears came through and they trashed it, and you can't keep them away unless you electrify it. And just a lot of they're cutting down everything everywhere. There's just a lot of wildlife left only with my property apparently.
Review every
And
special
so,
use permit applicant that comes up.
yeah.
I appreciate
I understand why the people
everybody's
that live around there are kind of concerned about that. Okay.
Yeah, I'm glad you came out. Thank you for coming. We value your input.
That's all right. Most important thing is, input from the.
I just wonder whether y'all heard it right.
Thank you.
Jack's coming.
Okay. And as Mr. Leatherwood comes up, I do want to thank everybody again for your input today. Mr. Love made a copy for all of us here, and as we said in the beginning, we'll say this all the time, the input from residents of the county is so important to us anytime we look at any project. I'm sorry? I just want to say thank you very much for everybody's input here today. This wasn't in our packet, but it came today. Mr. Love made a copy for all of us here. That's what we're taking time to discuss here. So I want to thank everybody for that. I would like to possibly ask the applicant to maybe mention a little bit about the property line.
Yes, sir. We spoke with Mr. Taylor during the break, and it appears that his property is in the furthest northeast of the transmission line. It's not within our project footprint, and we will definitely undertake to have a full boundary survey done and ensure that all that is done prior to moving into site plan and have everything be accurate. But I think Mr. Taylor would represent as well that we've otherwise resolved that we're not going to infringe on his property.
Okay, terrific. Does that suit you, Mr. Taylor, at least for the start here? Okay.
Oh, I'm sorry. Oh, gosh,
Too
Mr.
late,
Taylor,
sorry.
I feel bad. I don't want to throw you under the bus, but Jesse made me promise to say that there was a little typo made in sending her email, so it wasn't that she failed to respond, but Robinson got spelled without the I, and so.
Understood. Thank you. Okay. Are there any other questions of the board to the applicant? Okay. Well, in front of us, we have a 25-acre solar project in this special use permit application here. And what we're looking at is, as we all know, it's either an approval, denial, or table for further review.
Mr. Chairman, if I might?
Yes,
The
sir.
first order of business, if you look at my staff memo, is to do a 2232 review. So that would be your first consideration to determine whether this is in substantial accord with the comprehensive plan. So please include, that's your first deliberation to look at that.
I apologize, that's true,
Yeah,
yes.
and just make sure that is supposed to preface any type of, and I crafted some, I'm not wordsmithing it for you, putting words in your mouth, but I did preface that, some of the recommended motions. You want to make sure that any motion does include statements that deal with the comprehensive plan.
And Mr. Love, just to make sure I understand, our first order of business, the substantial accord review, the 2232 review, if we find the project is in substantial accord, then we go on to reviewing other merits of the special use permit and conditions and so on. If we find that there is no substantial, or there's not substantial accord, then we're done, effectively. If there's no substantial accord, then the analysis is over.
You could take that position.
Yeah.
You could further it by you could I think we've got, he's fixing that.
Okay. You're playing the music, sir, is that right?
Yeah, that could be the end of it, or you could recommend a denial if you feel it doesn't, not meeting, being in substantial accord could be a reason for.
denial.
Right.
Recommendation for denial. You'll bear with us on those technical
That's okay.
difficulties. He's got to call that back again.
Just so you know, Mr. Stanley's son is in the band here at Prince Edward County, so this helps a lot. I'll let him know you're working on your ability to play music here.
It's kind of a nice touch, actually, to have the background music.
Same music you hear when you're at the doctor's office, right?
All right.
Okay. As Mr. Love said, the first question really we have to do is look at the 2232 and decide if this fits what we're doing here.
Right.
And then from there, what our recommendations may be if we decide to proceed.
As we all know, the comprehensive plan is under review currently and subject to modification in the separate process going on right now. nonetheless, based on the provisions that Mr. Love included in his report about the comprehensive plan, the key one being that in this area, new residential development should be encouraged. I mean, that's pretty black and white.
Yep.
This solar project is not new residential development. So, you know, this is a tough one because, I mean, this is what sort of the rules of the road are right now.
And that's where the growth has been in this area here with the recent development of everything Rock River has done in the construction area here.
And, you know, like we talked about before as well, the owners of the land have other potential uses for the land by right.
Yes.
And it's, you know, this is a big county with a lot of rural land where solar has been approved elsewhere without issue, where it seemed to fit better than in areas partly or largely surrounded by residential development currently. So it seems like just focusing on the 2232 review, just again in black and white, the project is not in substantial accord with the comprehensive plan.
If you look at residential development.
Yeah, I mean, if we're going to be, you know, follow the law here.
Correct.
You know, maybe I'm oversimplifying it, but it seems like it's a pretty straightforward analysis. And again, as you said, we're just recommending this to the Board of Supervisors.
But what you're saying is, given the activity that has occurred there and what the potential activity could be, it does not really hit the 2232.
Right, and based on what the, you know, the law requires us to do, which is, you know, look at this proposal through the lens of, does it substantially accord with the comprehensive plan as it exists? Not as it might exist one day.
Exactly. As it exists today. Yeah.
Well, back in 2017, when that land transferred hands to the developer or realtor who subdivided it, it was, this lot was Lot 1. It is part of the subdivision, Old Ridge Estates.
Right.
But when it transferred to Mr. Puckett, the covenants and restrictions were removed from this lot to allow, whereas everybody else, you know, has restrictions for commercial and industrial and nothing like that.
It went to by right is basically what we do.
And I don't know how that it was advertised to future property owners as well. So that area might not have developed as fast if they had, you know, known that. But, I mean, knowing that it's part of the subdivision, to me, I don't believe the solar should go there with high-density residential.
Other comments from the board relative to that? You know, I think we've heard a lot from everybody here. I don't like to simplify things, but you know me, we're looking for some type of motion from the board here relative to this special use permit.
If there's no other comment, I'll make a motion. And I've been writing notes during the meeting, so I was looking at all three versions of the motion. And so just so you can sort of understand where I'm coming from, the middle, the second of the three recommended motions that the staff provided, I'm looking at page 8 of the packet. Let me make an edit and then I'll say the motion. It might be easier if I say the edit first. Again, the one that's, it's the middle of those three recommended motions. On the third line, there's a phrase, due to the fact that is, fosters, promotes, if you see what where I'm looking. I think is a typo, but I think that should be, I would change that to due to the fact that it represents incompatible.
Right.
I would change the wording there to due to the fact that it represents incompatible land development, blah, blah. So with that edit, then I would basically track the motion that staff presented here. So, verbatim, but in the middle of that, it would be, it is not substantially in accord with the Prince Edward County Comprehensive Plan due to the fact that it, referring to the application and the project, due to the fact that it represents incompatible land development in agricultural and residential areas. Continue with the rest of the motion.
Okay.
Second.
We have a motion and a second on the floor. We'll take a roll here. Mr. Page?
Yes.
Okay. In other words, you're yes to the deny as well.
Deny,
Okay.
yes.
Mr. Gilliam?
Yes to the denial.
Mrs. Sandlin?
Yes.
Mr. Perry?
Yes.
Mr. Womack?
Yes.
Mr. Weiss?
Yes.
Okay. Mr. Fuller?
Yes.
And Mr. Leatherwood?
Yes.
Okay. Okay. The motion to deny has been approved, and the vote is 8-0. So we'll deny the special use permit. Now, just to temper everybody here, just so you know, that, and we appreciate everything, this still does get passed off to the County Board of Supervisors, but based upon our recommendations to the County Board of Supervisors, we deny this special use permit. And I want to thank everybody for your time.
Mr. Chairman.
One further.
Sorry.
One further thing, folks. There will still be a Board of Supervisors public hearing at their regular January meeting, which you will get notices.
Right.
So.
And the only other comment I have, and we'll continue with our part of the meeting, anybody's welcome to leave, happy holidays to everybody here. Thank you so much.
What's that? Oh, January 9th.
January 9th.
Yeah, I've got to get my notices out next week.
Yes.
You voted yes.
I voted to deny as well, yes.
It'll be 9-0.
Is that right? Fantastic. And I need 4 strokes.
That was good. That was a good meeting. That was a good hearing. That was a
Thank
good
you, everyone. Thank you.
Good job. All right, want to go to your.
Okay, next on the agenda, and everybody's welcome to stay, would be a review of supervisors' actions.
Yes. So, Mr. Chairman, member of the Planning Commission, the Board of Supervisors did approve the rezoning for Paladin Medical Services. That's where Crossroads will seek to locate. I do know that the Board of Supervisors did approve the rezoning, so that property is zoned C1 commercial, general commercial. There are crews out there doing some landscaping and some seeding. There's some additional, that has nothing to do with the project, but before that property transfers to Crossroads, they have to close out the stormwater permit. That still was left undone from the passing of the owner. So we're working with them on that and Maxie. So that will happen as soon as they can get that taken care of. Then Crossroads will then take ownership of the property. But that move forward. What's your next item?
Old business.
Under old business, we don't have any old business other than the fact that we do have your iPads in-house. We don't have all the cases and we haven't had them programmed and set up, but I will be bringing those to your next meeting to distribute. And we'll have a little tutorial we'll hopefully have our IT staff here next time and be able to go over some points of use on those, but we do have those in-house.
Should we come in early?
Do what now?
Should we come in early?
If you want to, yeah, sure thing.
It's a new one versus an old one.
Because I haven't even.
Yep, okay, all right. So they do have SIM cards in them, so they operate off the cellular network, so you don't need to be on Wi-Fi. They are a standalone device. You move on to
New business?
new business, okay. Well, it's kind of new and old. At your place, and I apologize, I just finished it today, so I had to get some numbers from the building code office. But we're required by Virginia law to give the end of the year report from you all, which then goes to the Board of Supervisors. I did my staff report at the last board meeting, so they had a lot of these numbers, but I quantified these and have updated some of these. I think some interesting things to note, we did exceed last year's numbers on zoning permits. I'm at 210 right now. Today, I've got 2 in an email, for those are the signs for Wawa. But I think we'll be somewhere around 215 to 220 on total zoning permits for new construction items for the year, and that includes pools, decks, porches, houses. Gave you a good breakdown based on building permits issued, and this is from January 1st of this year till this past Friday, the 15th.
Okay.
And so before I give this to the board, I will update these numbers again for the calendar year. But it's interesting, these are project values. These are not permit fees collected. But you see, we had a good number of homes, 1 and 2 family homes, 46 permits, manufactured homes, 25, a lot of additions. But there's some items in here that's, I think, of interest. We have the building code office had a new fee schedule that they put in place last October of last year. And so we had a first calendar year. We had 13 projects that we've caught that started work without permit. So that does generate, we are catching a lot more things. That's 13 projects that contractors or individuals have started. So I think that's important. Our values of our numbers have gone up. If I didn't bring the last year's report that I had, but our numbers right now are about not quite 100 permits less than last year on the building side, but our values are already up. And this doesn't count the Wawa, the Harbor Freight, Sekou, or the car wash. So these project values are going to be worth even more when we see those, if those get permitted. They're going to be permitted through the building code office separately. I've done them as far as zoning, but we've got a lot of building value, project value that is occurring in the county. I think you had more applications. Counting tonight, we've had 12 applications. Last year, we had, I think, 7 or 8.
7, yeah.
We did have a rezoning. So we've had a lot more work this year. What's not on this list, it didn't have to come to y'all. We did do a new flood zone ordinance, which impacts development. So we've done 3 we have the zoning ordinance totally over, redid that, and then a brand-new floodplain ordinance, which is the model, the Virginia model, the DCR Virginia model. So we've got a lot of new documents, new tools. We're working on a comprehensive plan now, as you know. And we've got a lot of CIP projects have been completed that you see in here. So pretty proud of the activity that y'all have done, the staff has done, the building code staff. It's been a busy year. I think 2024 is going to be really busy as well. But you look at the CIP projects, a lot of things have been completed.
Actually, number 10 on here, VDOT revenue sharing on the Manor House turn lanes. They were out there today. I wasn't sure if that was to maybe help with the new nursing home proposal.
It's survey work.
Okay. Yeah, I saw them out there today. I did want to ask, first of all, excellent job by everybody here. The nursing home rumor, which is, there, that the land has been sold to a nursing home. Yes, Johnny Osso's property, yeah.
I haven't heard that confirmed.
Yeah, I understand that that was the reason the sewer line was put in, and once the sewer line was put in and completed, then he's executed the sale, or supposedly executing the sale for a nursing home to go in there. But doesn't a nursing home require I don't know what they call it, as-need document, or I think there's
Certificate of public
need, certificate of public need, that's what it is, yes, because,
And that comes from the state.
yes, it doesn't come from the county, it comes from the state. So if they deem a need for a nursing home in the area, then that kind of gives them, I don't want to say that it gives them green light, but it gives them the go-ahead to move forward that way. Yeah, but there's a rumor that 40 acres just south of the entrance going into the manor that Johnny Osso had purchased and kept out of the proposal that they're working on to sell the balance of the land has been done so that he can or has sold it to a group to put a nursing home there.
I can say for the record, no one has contacted my office. Not
That's-
a-
I was just curious.
Not a
Yeah.
realtor, not a banker, not him, not a buyer.
Yeah.
No one has done a due diligence. Not that they have to.
Right.
Just for him to
Yeah.
make a sale.
Right.
But that, nothing's been vetted by the county.
Okay, I was just curious, that's all.
Yep.
But that's what I'm hearing, that there's a nursing home going to go there, not residential, but a nursing home, which may be a need here for the county.
Just past Farmville Lake Road?
Actually, no, if you go to the
Right
entrance of the
before?
manor, before Farmville Lake
Oh.
Road, the manor entrance, manor drive or whatever, between those two, going back to what they call the maintenance building. That land there was purchased by Johnny Osel a few years ago. He did a lot of work out there, and they've brought the sewer line up, extended it up basically from the sewage pumping station and back about a mile, and it's brought all the way up and on that property. And because of the electrical lines going in there and the water, that would give the majority of the utilities needed for somebody to develop that. But the rumors I've heard has been a nursing home.
Well, I'm a senior citizen and we need more nursing homes.
Are you verifying? You're confirming that you're moving there?
Quality.
I'm just curious, that's all. Sorry to interrupt there.
No, that's fine. It's good. It's a good question. So the last item I have, I passed this out. Now, this came off of the internet. There's a website. I encourage you to look it up. It's a very well-done website by a developer. Tomorrow at 5 PM at the Meharrin Fire Department, there's a community solar meeting. And it's about an 80 megawatt. And this is utility scale. I don't think I have a total they haven't given us a total acreage. Their site plan, they have a concept plan online at the website. It doesn't give us an acreage. Yeah, it's about
about 800
this is a
acres.
rough, this is about an 800 acre site.
So we're
And that's
looking-
not counting buffers. It may be a larger project area when you count buffering and any kind of wildlife corridor or anything. But 80 megawatt site would be the biggest, it's the biggest proposal here that we've had. Because the CEP was about 20, 25? 25. And that was 300 acres. That was the Heinz property, PRJ property.
This would be 35 times bigger than the project we looked at today.
Yes, correct. This is their line card that they've been passing out to area residents.
And this
They-
is Gabriel Energy.
Yep. They've been knocking on doors.
Yeah.
And actually engaging individuals. I've had two folks come to my office about this, thinking that we had an application. We do not. But tomorrow is their first step towards making that application. They have to do that community meeting, give us a summary of it. So from 5 to 7 PM tomorrow at the Meharrin Fire Department, anyone is invited to attend. It's their meeting. I will be there if the public has a process question, because obviously the solar company can't answer that.
Right.
But I'm there more of an observer
Yeah.
and a county aid, county staff, just to answer something from what's the next step. But they're gonna introduce this project officially to the neighborhood. But they've been doing a pretty good outreach. They've got a very interesting website that's got a lot of information about agriculture, about solar, about property values, a lot of stuff. Again, it's their content. But this is the first really big site we've had other than the CEP.
The 300. Yep.
Yep, 300 acre site.
On Verso Road, was that?
Falkland.
Falkland Road.
Again, it's the same situation, same developer bought a big property.
Yep.
Subdivided lots.
Yep.
They're larger and it's
Yeah.
of course more rural. but
Right.
It's still, residential.
Mr. Chairman, I'd like to
Yes.
say it certainly was nice to see something in the Farmville Herald about Wawa.
Yes.
We've gotten so many
Yeah.
questions,
Yeah.
when, whatever, did y'all get it?
Yeah,
Give us
you
on
lying
that?
to us, right? Yeah,
Thank you.
yeah.
Well, there've been some questions on that on the county's website, and we actually are intending to kind of give a standard, a report, comment on that response. The thing to keep in mind is that site, when it was permitted from a special use permit way back when, did not have the IDA parcel with the car wash. So what that did, when they found that a user, the development company, Blackwood, which is a C-store developer, found Flagstop Car Wash, which are co-located in a lot of Wawa sites, to come here, they started talking to us about that. That triggered the special use permit on that, which also triggered some stormwater redesign. It definitely, we had to do an amendment on disturbed acreage. So that had to go back to DEQ as an amendment. Also, of course, Lynchburg District VDOT, after finding out about all these projects, knowing that the school system has been put on everybody's radar, was accident history for people going to the elementary school, the high school, middle school, they required a full TIA for the car wash and Wawa. Those things slowed this project down, but we're getting 2 projects now. And from the timeline of the car wash special use permit, we're really fast on approval. They're stormwater approved, they're zoning approved. They're working with final architectural with the building code office, but they can turn dirt now. I just got their bond in the last 10 days to do stormwater land disturbance. So these projects are not an overnight thing, but this one did have the added time lapse of having a second project be added to it, and they had to get, of course, they own that land now from the IDA. They
They get a 9 o'clock meeting tomorrow morning with VDOT for pre-construction.
Yeah, they got a pre-construction meeting tomorrow with VDOT. So both of those sites are gonna get built at the same time, graded out, paved, and everything. So it, in essence, from the time, it has been a little lag between Wawa to now, but the car wash got added. They would, if they'd have just started, they had stormwater approval when they brought the SUP to us
But it had to
for the
be-
car wash.
That had to be revised.
And Bowler, their engineer, had to redesign the site, to revise the site. So,
Well, the problem is Dollar General has set a precedent of how quickly things can happen now.
they have.
They really have.
That's the Kingsville Walmart.
Keys of Walmart.
No, that's true.
It was already robbed already.
It was,
Yeah, I
wasn't
heard
it?
about that.
That's a nice story.
Yeah.
It is, it's nice.
That didn't take long either.
About the third night.
The other thing I'll say, they're on a temporary CO. You see a little bathroom facility. They're getting their final health department permit for all their facilities from the health department downstairs. That's forthcoming. They do have a temporary CO, and there is some painting left over to be done. That cap on the top of the building is gonna get painted out white, and then the columns get painted white. So I'm really excited to see that happen. And the trim, I think they're actually gonna trim that out white where they fitted it together. But it's a good example of what the Highway Corridor Overlay District can do to upgrade a building. I think that's prettiest Dollar General in this county, in my opinion only.
Well, the other thing that's nice to see, there's vehicles in that lot,
Yeah.
a lot.
Are they gonna get a, ABC license like the other Dollar?
I'm sure they will.
Yeah.
I'm sure they will.
That's what I've heard,
That's
yeah.
all they'll get.
That-
Just from Hampton City.
That, and that's also the biggest Dollar General in the county, because that's 10,000
It's huge.
Yeah, it is.
640 square feet. It's almost 1,500 square feet larger than any other building.
And some of them are as little as
It's really nice.
5,000
I
square
went in
feet.
there
Yeah.
last week.
So that's all I have.
The only comment I have is I really want to thank everybody for everything here and wish everybody happy holidays. Merry Christmas and Happy New Year. Happy New Year, yeah. Yes, exactly. And thank you, everybody, for all your help.
Thank you.
We are adjourned.
For being our fearless leader.
Santa's bringing iPads.
Yep.
Santa's bringing
More stuff to work with.
Put it on to catch you.